Hello, welcome everyone. This is Out of the Gloom, the Shaman Wood podcast. I'm Bill Skaronsky. You can call me Puddles. That's my partner, John Kreis. He is Doghouse. And our third man this week is none other than John Kalicki, the one and only yellow card. Welcome, men. How's the weekend been for you? How's the beginning of this week going?
I'll go first. I had a good weekend. Um, Doing some plumbing around the house that I'd rather not get into. Pain in the ass, but get it done.
Sounds like a great weekend, huh?
Yes,
Doing some plumbing.
Yeah.
Yellow card.
similar experience. Housework had one. My oldest 2.0 was out of town, so we only had one kid, so it was half the effort at home. So had a storm door to install, but somebody measured wrong. I'm not going to blame or say who to blame, but so it didn't work out. Had to special order another one, but actually watched Ace Ventura 1 and 2 with my 11-year-old in the M. So we had a good weekend watching some good movies.
I
Perfect.
think we talked a little bit about that, how there's this age at which you start to reintroduce movies that you watched when you were younger, and some of them hit really well and some of them just don't.
Yeah.
Doghouse, do you remember going through that with Booger, like reintroducing him to stuff that you had
Yeah.
when you were younger?
Trying to think of some that went over well. Rick and Morty. That's a newer show. Beavis and Butthead. He likes a little bit, although I don't know. It's a little. I watched a couple episodes the other day. It was pretty stupid, but um, I'll have to think of one while we're talking here.
Hmm. All right. Well, before we jump into the first section, just want to remind everyone where they can find more information about F3. That, of course, is online at f3nation.com. And our region, the Shamanwood region, has a website, f3shamanwood.com. If you're in Slack, if you're already in F3, then please do hop on the queue sheet. There are slots available going into the fall through the end of the year. Even if you've already been on once, you can come back and talk about something different. But we want to extend that invitation just like the Q sheet is always open. The podcast sheet is open as well. As a reminder, F3 stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. That's what we'll be talking about today on this episode. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Doghouse, who will talk through our core values, mission, and credo. Doghouse, take it away.
Thank you. So the five core values of F3 are: one, we're open to all men; two, we're free of charge; three, we're held outdoors, rain, shine, heat, or cold; four, we're peer led in a rotating fashion; and five, all workouts end in a circle of trust.
All right.
Our mission, which is made up of a task and a purpose, is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for men for the invigoration of male community leadership. And finally, our credo is to leave no man behind, but leave no man where you find him.
Aye. Well, speaking of which, I'd like to know where you men found yourselves this past week or so. Were there any certain workouts, any certain posts that stood out to you? Yellow Card, I'll start with you. What did you do this past week or so?
Yeah, I was only out twice last week, but kind of went back to my roots on Saturdays at Rock Club. Binford was queuing. Wasn't that big of a group. I think there was about 11 of us, and it was a basic ruck club. We put our rucks on, we walked 3 miles, we came back, and it just brought back a lot of memories because Binford was around the first time that I ever worked out. I think that first time I ever went to Rock Club, Binford was there, and that was maybe my second or third post. And we talked for a long time. And I just got to know him, and I'm like, this is just a great dude, you know. So it brought back a lot of memories of that first time I rucked with him. Um, and he had a good message at the end. His message was you used to get 25 people at Ruck Club on Saturdays. We'd all drink coffee at the park in the parking lot afterwards, and it was just a great time. But just brought back a lot of memories and realized you don't have to do super hard stuff every single morning. And there's a lot of second F involved with the ruck clubs, and you're still getting some work in and have a lot of meaningful conversations. You meet a lot of dudes that way. So that
Hmm.
was my
Mhm.
favorite workout this week.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to that in a little bit. The way that if you've seen F3 from every angle, you tend to come back to some things, and over time that experience is a little bit different. Doghouse, what about you? What about you this last week or so?
Yeah, so I only got on one time, so mine's a winner by default, but it was still a great workout. Um, Saturday lift club. Rikishi was on cue. We did a pretty basic circuit, but the Saturday Black Diamond lift clubs are really building up, really catching some momentum. I think we had 20, maybe just under 20, 16, 18 guys.
Wow.
Um, and it's great, man. It reminds me a lot of our Three Rivers Friday. It's got a lot of the same energy. And had the Hulk flag up as I'm obligated to bring every Saturday, but happily obligated,
Mhm.
as I have the opportunity to do every Saturday, I should say. So, yeah, Saturday Lift Club is becoming a lot of fun, becoming my favorite workout of the week.
We've got to get that flag on this podcast just so people can see if they haven't been to Lift Club what flag
Yeah,
we're talking about.
I'll try to get it in the background on next week's pod.
Nice. All right. Let's move into the second F portion of this podcast. It's the PAX Spotlight Q&A. This is why we have Yellow Card on the show today. We're going to give everyone an opportunity to get to know him a little bit better, get to know his background, and we've got a couple things that we want to talk about. So, Doghouse, I know you've got a couple questions you want to ask to get us started.
I've got a lot of questions I'd like to ask Yellow Card, but I'll keep it to three today.
Yeah, my
So let's
my
go right at
agent
the
only
beginning.
allowed 45 minutes, so
All right,
go
well,
ahead.
we'll trim it down. We'll respect your rider. Um, when when and how did you find F3?
Uh, September, it was Labor Day 2021. Actually,
Okay.
just prior to that, I saw a couple posts. Storm Chaser put them out in our Facebook neighborhood group, and I did reach out to him at one point because I was like, "What is this? This might be something I'm into." And then he told me what time it was at, and it was at 5 in the morning. And I start work early. I
Yep.
start at 6, always have. So I'm like, I'll never be able to do it, right? Typical excuses. And then that actually about a week later, um it was the 5K. Was it the Three Rivers Brewing
Brew run.
5K? Yeah, the brew run, and that's what it was. And so we go, I show up, I run about a 17-minute 5K like usual. Got beat by only Picasso. And, afterwards, Picasso, the aforementioned, he's like, "Hey, I want you to meet a couple of my friends." And sitting there is Bob Vila, Foundation, Pi. And there was a couple others there. And they're all drinking beer. And, Storm Chaser, this is his opportunity, right? He gets a hold of me. My wife's with me. And he's like, "Come on, man, just do it. Come out. Monday is Labor Day. You can make it out." Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, "Okay, I'll come out Monday." And that's going to be the end of it, right? I'll probably only be able to come out on Saturdays, whatever. And sure enough, showed up Monday. It was a Storm Chaser beat down. We had to carry this tire around. Bob Vila was my partner. Neither of us were tall enough to reach the tire because part of it was like a Dora deal where you had to hold the tire and your partner had to bear crawl out. Well, him and I were the shortest ones there. Sparkler was there. All these normal sized people, and Bob Vila and I. So uh, you know, learned really quick that even though it was tough, and even though no one knew me, everyone was like, welcoming and everything. And then that was kind of it, man. I was hooked ever since, and then found every excuse possible to come, even though I was supposed to start work at 6 in the morning, and that was it. I was hooked from then, for the whole thing. So
It's funny how you describe it. In the beginning, you find every excuse not to come out, and when it gets hooked into you, you find every excuse you can to come out. So great way of
yeah, and it was a
explaining
good.
that. Uh,
I I had just lost my mom in June of that year, so having the camaraderie with a new group of dudes, was really important. Now I look back on it, it was a big thing. It got me through that. That was a pretty tough time. So uh, just kind of, things happen for a reason, right?
Absolutely. So, do you know what your post count is today?
570.
Hmm.
All right. And my last question: how did you get your F3 name?
Uh, well, after that beat down, I went in to the middle. Everyone asked stuff about me, and it was pretty basic. It was I coached soccer, I played college soccer, and at that point, Sparkler started yelling "Grass Fairy" out, and I'm thinking, oh, geez, this is gonna be great. So Bob Vila then yelled "Yellow Card" after that, which, looking back at it, I would have never said "Yellow Card," right? I would have just played that Grass Fairy thing forever, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
Storm Chaser says, yeah, fine, yellow card. So lucky for me, I'm yellow card, and unlucky for you guys, I'm not grass fairy. How's that?
You did get Peter Francis Tracy finally, though. So does that kind of compensate for not being Grass Fairy?
You know what? That wasn't me. That was Flanders. I may have started it with Flanders a few months earlier when we were at
Yeah.
Plainfield's Convergence, but Flanders jumped in, and then the new PFG says he's a lawyer, and it was just all over from there. I think you were there, right, Doghouse? I mean, it had to
Yeah.
happen, right? So.
It
That's the
had to. Once he
happiest I've
said he
ever
was a
seen
lawyer,
yellow
that was
card.
it.
That was that yeah, that I could retire from F3 now and be happy.
Die happy man. We'll have to get him on and explain the background of his name, the importance to the F3 lore of Peter Francis Tracy.
I don't even think he knows the
Yep.
importance of it, to be honest.
I don't think he does. We'll have to save it for the pod.
I mean,
I
yeah,
think you should interview him at his office at 52 and Larkin and Joliet there because he's got one right there.
out in the parking
With
lot.
the half busted light in the old blockbuster.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
I mean, that's a really good example of the kind of culture, like those things that nobody outside of an F3 workout, that wouldn't make sense to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is everybody so excited about this local Joliet law firm? But there's no national lore to this, but those of us knuckleheads in F3 we're so excited by that. But that's a part of
Hey,
the
it's all we
culture.
got. It's all we got, but we got it right.
We got it. That's right. It's part of the culture that has been built in this region even before Shamanwood was a region. And Yellow Card, you've been a big part of that. If you think about it, like Doghouse mentioned, Fridays at Three Rivers. There's this, if you don't know, you're really missing out on this environment that starts Thursday night, really starts the day before the Friday workouts. Talk us through why, if you look at Slack, there are infinitely more comments and in that pre-blast than any other pre-blast during the week. Why is that? Where did that start from?
Well, I know where it started from. So they asked me to be a site Q. They were opening Three Rivers up. I was probably with F3 maybe almost a year, a little less than a year, and they asked me to be the site Q there in Shanahan, and that was our Plainfield's first expansion. I think that further south, like they had the wood, and it was on Fridays, and I was like, yeah, of course, I was grateful for the opportunity, and when we started out, we had three people, three people, four people, and then we started getting more people in, and it would start building, and you know, as a site Q, I think one of your main duties that I don't think we talk about enough is that that's your job to sell that AO, right? Like own it, that's yours. So I just had fun with it. We just started throwing jib jabs out, calling people out, and it just turned into a comedy show. I mean that's really all it did. And it would get to the point where we were getting 20, 25 people regularly every Friday. And that's when I think it really kind of hit home with F3 playing field and expanding further south and seeing the difference in culture there and the fun that was there to be had right by everybody. It was Friday. It's like, come out, let's just have a blast. Let's do some hard stuff together. And it just, man, I don't know, it just stuck. I will take blame for pushing the envelope on that and trying to get people out, but the people that are there, like Mr. Burns now, he's just carrying the tradition on. So for that to be
Mm-hmm.
there and just to see it, I mean, we're going 3 years deep on this and it's still pretty good. And same thing like you guys are doing on Saturday mornings with the lift clubs. I don't ever hardly make it. I should be, but I don't. And just for the culture aspect of it because it's great. But it's just it's awesome, man. It's organic. It's like you said earlier, about the PFG thing. Like that's our little thing. This
Mhm.
is what we do here. My light just turned off, but it's just it. I don't know. And then I started throwing in on the PsyQ channel. I'd put in the world emoji and then the number one like first place medal every Friday when we were in with Slack with Plainfield. So it would say like, you know, 7 people at the Olympiad, and then it would say 28 people at the world's greatest, and it just stuck. So I don't know. But just
That's where it
it's
came
fun,
from. I'm glad we know.
Yeah, there's
yeah.
the origin
And then the
story.
Shaman
World's
Wood
greatest, yeah.
emoji came from there, and we had at it. But I listened to Millville on here. Millville was around for a lot of it, and I know he kind of tried to explain it. I don't think he could explain it like I can. It just organically happened, and it's amazing.
I think that's the way
So
it's supposed to happen too. If it's truly about
Hmm.
culture, it's not something you can force. It has to, and the interesting thing is that I think it has to naturally build, and if it really works, you can't stop it. You can't stop it from continuing once it does reach a critical point. So,
Yeah.
like you said, like now it's just Mr. Burns carrying forward the tradition that's already been built. He doesn't have as heavy of a
yeah,
lift. He's just carrying forward what the expectation is. So now that
yeah,
Three Rivers Friday is an expectation. It's not even like I think if we went backwards, it would be really noticeable. Like if there were only 3 or 5 guys and there wasn't the energy, there wasn't the Thursday Slack channel activity, I think people would notice that. It wouldn't feel genuine anymore.
yeah. I agree.
All right. So that's part of the culture conversation I wanted to have because there is such an energy and such an identity with things like that. And I know you're a part of that from the very beginning. But going back over the last 4 years now, I wanted you to talk about how your experience has changed. You said in the beginning you were like fully bought in, you're trying to be as part of as many things as possible, trying to find ways to say yes to as much as possible. But you and I have talked, and you and Millville have talked also about how over time it's just not possible to do anymore. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that evolution over time of your experience in F3.
Yeah. So kind of like you mentioned, you get rolling and you're there every day, a couple of years, you're there 3, 4 days a week and that's your main goal, right? I got to get out, I got to do this art stuff. What's next? What's the next workout? You know, what more can I do? What's my next cue? What's my next cue going to look like? Um, but then you start kind of understanding the leadership principle, I think. And I think, I kind of think of it after reading Q Source and Free to Lead and stuff. I'm like, is this kind of where they're getting at? With that is like you come out first for the first F, right? That's what hooks you. And then it's like, okay, I'm out here at 5:15 in the morning doing 25 blockies because Latte's screaming at me to do them. Like, what's my next thing? And then you look at the other ways you could take that into your life. Like, I've been in a leadership role at work for going on 8 years now. I was recently promoted to a manager role, and I've had a lot of tough conversations that I've had to have with people. I've had, to sit on recently on unemployment cases. I've had to write people up. I've had to give people time off. I've had to kind of, sit down and look across from people and be like, hey, you're an extremely negative person. I can't have that culture in my workplace. What are we going to do to fix it? Where I don't think 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm having that conversation or I'm as comfortable doing it. And I think that's kind of the 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 biggest thing now that I get out of leading people at F3, seeing other people lead people, and just listening to people COTs and talk about things that are important, and all that has transpired to where I feel I'm at the point where I don't need the 3 or 4 or 5 days a week workouts like I used to, and I'm using these in other aspects of life. And you mentioned Millville. Millville and I talked about that a lot. I've known John a while, and I think we're very similar. Uh, have very similar beliefs about that. We've had some pretty serious conversations about, just work. His work's pretty taxing, like mine is, and finances and things of that nature. Where you discipline yourself by doing these hard things in the morning around people that are tough, and I think it just toughens you in the long run. You know, even like you're asked, like being at home with your family too. It's like you first get involved, you're able to do all this second up stuff with people, and then you do it for a little while. And for me, it's like, you know what, my second up place for me is with my wife and my kids. And
Mhm.
I don't need to go out and drink every weekend and stay out till 2 in the morning at 40 years old. It's like that's where you know my second F in my life is at right now. But F3 could give you a lot of things, but you also have to harness it, in ways that, to fit your life and see how does this make me better, right? So
I think Millville said it might have been him, might have been someone else who said you can F3 your way out of a relationship. And that never really occurred to me, although I can see it happening in bits and pieces when you want to, especially like around reindeer games or something where you're ultra head deep in something and you realize you're just putting way too much time into it, way too much time and effort
yeah.
into this movement. And you do have to take a step back, I think, like you're saying, and say, well, what am I really doing this for? Am I really doing this to find a new group of men to socialize with? Am I doing this to become stronger? Or like Doghouse started in the beginning, the task and the purpose is the purpose really to do something else with what we're building here in F3. I think that's kind of what you've been getting at. Um, you mentioned that it's something that you've applied to your work life, something you've applied to your home life. Have you heard the feedback from those areas saying like you've changed, you're a different person over the last 4 years than you were then, and I think it's because of F3. Have you got that sense?
Well, I know for a fact at work I have, because I have my Grow Ruck plaque that I had made by one of the packs. I think it was Grow Ruck 30, the one we did at Three Rivers, which was awesome. Um, but I have that plaque with it says yellow card on it. It's sitting in my office at work, right? And people always ask me, what is that? What did you do? And I'm like, well, we rucked like 26 miles all night long, and did all these things that night, and it was probably the hardest thing I ever did. And and I don't know per se if anyone's ever just mentioned to me like, hey, I think you're a good leader because you went through that. But I think when people hear that you do those kind of things, and especially people that work for you or that report to you in some way or form, they get an idea like, oh yeah, like that sucks that that guy did that. Like he's probably not gonna, because I think about that too. Like if when other people told me all the things they've ever did, like, oh, I ran a marathon or I did this, I'm always like, wow, dude, like you have a different respect for somebody. But at work, um, my boss I've been trying to TH him, but he said he'll come out when he can do one push up. He's always joking, but we talk about leadership stuff all the time. And he hasn't listened to our podcast yet, but he's listened to others about F3, and he loves it, and he knows it too. We've talked about the same principle, like, hey, if you could get up early in the morning and you could do this, then it's only going to make you a better leader. And um, so I don't know if I've ever really gotten somebody say, hey, you're better at being a leader because you're an F3, but um, I think I don't know. I can always tell myself the people that do the harder things and put the effort in to be a better leader. So I can only hope that it's the same. But um, I think the rapport I have with the people that work for me, they know me, they know this is a part of my life, and even some of the things I talked about earlier about these tough conversations I've had, I would like to think that they understand some if somebody does the things like we do in the morning, that it's easier for me to get to that level and do that. And then on top of that, like empower others to go and do things as well.
Mhm.
Right. Um, I know I'm kind of going off tangent from what you asked. So the direct answer is I don't think I've directly heard it, but Um, I've had some pretty damn good results, puddles. So
I think the answer is there, and it's just sparking this thought that we talk about F3 is obviously the first F being fitness, a way to get stronger, a free men's workout group, all these ways that we describe F3. But just imagine if every one of the men that reports to you was in F3, like how much different the organization would be if all
you
the
know,
men went through that sort of developmental process.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because I was thinking about that earlier. I don't know if you guys met him. Doghouse, you might have puddles, you may have. He was at the day the island opened, the opening of the island. He's from F3 Kankakee, but he works at this light's killing me, but he works at Kinder Morgan, but he
Production,
works at a
right?
different facility than me.
Mhm.
His name's Discharge. Um,
Discharge.
yeah, he's been out a few times. He came out to Three Rivers Friday once or
Yep.
twice. That's how we got his name actually. But we were talking about F3 one day, and he says to me, he goes, if a lot of these guys that work for me came out here and did this stuff in the morning, would have our workforce would be like unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's crazy that you said that because he hasn't come out that much. But for him to say that, it kind of ties right into what you're saying, Puddles.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, we spend just corporate speak, we spend a lot of resources in professional development. We spend a lot of effort helping people get better at their craft. And one of those crafts may be leadership, or at least understanding leadership in a way to manage projects, manage people better. Um, but I can't imagine that there's a person who's gone through those early days of F3, like you already talked about, or the evolution of being a part of something bigger than yourself and being able to give back, being expected to be a leader. I can't imagine someone going through that process and not growing in other areas of their life. I know I've seen it in myself, my family has seen it in me. Doghouse, I'm sure you've got similar stories as well, but I think it's more than a physical and faith-based experience in which every part of yourself grows as a result of being of having F3 in your life. Doghouse, would you relate to that in any way?
Yeah, I think for me, there's a lot of personally like tangential benefits of just being up there early, right? So, you know, normally, and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If I have a 9 o'clock call for work, my alarm's set for 8:30. Before F3. Working from home, you can, it's easy to fall into those types of habits. So with F3, the alarm's set for 4. And Three Rivers Friday is a perfect example for me. So Friday is payday, so I go pull some cash out of the bank. I usually go with my car wash, pick up my prescriptions, anything I got to do. I usually do right after the Three Rivers workout. So just that getting your day started earlier, getting things done earlier in the day, not having that. For me, I'm a big procrastinator, so switching that mentality of getting things done early instead of later, I think that's been a big benefit personally for me beyond the gloom, as we would say.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I think back to college. I think back to
Mm-hmm.
how every night of the week, where I would spend my time would be based on like a certain rotation of bars. Like Tuesday night was the
100%.
music at the Lizard Lounge I went to Illinois State. Thursday night was a different bar, live music there. Sunday was the games at the sports bar. Saturday night was more like the downtown Bloomington bar. And I really only knew what day of the week it was based on what was going on there. But now I look at my calendar, it's completely different. It's like Monday is the Wood, Tuesday's Run Club, Wednesday's this, then Thursday is the campus, and Friday, Three Rivers, Saturday, etc. So it does really, it sets up a structure for your week that I think most people don't have a real sense of like what's my day going to look like. But with F3, if you
Mm-hmm.
do it that way, I think you get into a routine where you know what to expect from yourself every day of the week.
One other quick thing I think I'll add to that is I think a lot of people would agree is, you know, if you go to F3 workout and the rest of your day is crap, what for whatever reason, right? You just have a crap day. You can always look back and say, you know what, I had a shitty day, but I did. At least I got up and worked out. At least I
Mhm.
got up, maybe had some coffee with the guys. You can kind of always come back to that. That you know brings you back closer to a good day.
Yeah. I know so many of us work from home too, or work remotely. I joke openly that if it wasn't for F3, I would probably go 3 or 4 days without seeing another person outside of my family, just because
Yeah,
I work in the basement.
I
I
could
don't
see it.
go anywhere. It could easily happen that way. Yellow card, I wanted to come back to you and ask, you talked a little bit about how you've taken F3 principles outside of the gloom to the workplace, to your family. How else would you say F3 has impacted your life over these last 4 years? Anything specifically come to mind?
Well, I think just the physical aspect of it.
Well, you're
When I
already a
first
specimen, so I imagine that can't get much better.
That's true. I mean, when you're built like a fire hydrant, puddles, it's hard to change that body form. But I was always a runner. Strictly, that's all I did was run. And I never worked out. I never lifted. I did when I was younger. I just never lifted anymore, and I never did boot camp style things. I'd go out run 10 miles, and that's what I did. And um, just coming out and getting that back and building my body back up that way, my heart up that way. I just stopped running because I just got into this and I enjoy doing this so much. So like physically that's kind of a change. Um, I never lost a bunch of weight. I probably gained some weight being out at F3, but I don't know if that's just age or metabolism or whatever, but so definitely the physical aspect, for sure that everyone has, but mentally we talked about work and other things, but just your mental mindset too is like kind of goes back to like what Doghouse just said or whatever. I mean, even if you have a crappy day, you still came out and you did something hard in the morning. And that I think believe that's truth. Like you already did the hardest part of your day in the morning. You already ran up, Mount Wood 100 times, or you already had Sparkler yelling at you in the morning, or you had fun with the guys while you were doing it, right? So you did the hardest thing. You had a couple laughs in the morning, and now you go to work. And then when you deal with things that you deal with at work, it's really not as bad when you're used to that mindset and you harden yourself, I think. And to be honest, I totally agree that, especially for men, that's what men need. They need that. And then they also need just the free, like, we talk about free to lead, like being free to make your own decisions, to lead how you want to lead, and just getting that principle in your head breaks the chains, I think, in a lot of ways for people mentally as well as physically. And I think there's a lot to say for it. And I think, probably not just F3, but you see ultra marathoners or David Goggins or people like that. And I think they've made that connection, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that has impacted me too a lot.
Yeah, I would think everybody feels that way in some sense that F3 is just a different kind of experience and a different way to start your day. I know I feel very different on the days I don't post. By like late morning, early afternoon, I feel like, man, what did I even do today? Like I got up and I sat in on some meetings, but what have I really accomplished? So I know it, I feel it when it's not there. Um, and I haven't really replaced it aside from like some training runs. I haven't replaced it with working out outside of F3. I know some guys still go to the gym,
Mm.
some guys are still active, but I have not done that. So when I don't work
Yeah,
out,
that's
I feel it.
one of the things I'll do, since we're always like I'm at soccer practice now. There's trails around here. I'll go and ruck or ruffle or run 3-4 miles here.
Mm,
Right? Would I've done that before F3? I don't know. Am I more inclined to do it because I wasn't able to get up in the morning, and I know everyone else was up, and there was a workout right down the street I couldn't make, so I had to be at work at 6. I think that plays into it a little bit too, right? Like that's what's changed me too. It's like, well, I better get out and do it. Puddles is out running 3 miles in the morning I'm working out. I better do something tonight too. So that sticks with you too, even if you're not, for me at least, even if I'm not with you guys. So,
You mentioned soccer practice, and this is a bit off script, but I wanted to ask you anyway. How do you talk to your son about F3? Like, how do you, looking forward, I, I think the obvious answer is yes, you'd probably recommend it for anyone's sons, but how do you talk to kids about this experience, knowing that it's something that down the road, all things going well, should still be available for them and should be an opportunity for them to pursue. Do you talk about it much at home in that way?
well, not really, but both my sons have came out. We got Red Card and Big Daddy.
Mm.
Yeah, Red Card's my 13-year-old. He came to an evening boot camp one time that Norm was running, and he ran about 2 miles, and about the time we ran half a mile. So, uh, I think he understood more. Probably to him, I'm just kind of looking through the lens of him, just from conversations we've had. Like he's like, "Oh, it's your group of friends or your F3 guy friends." So I don't think he really gets the fitness aspect of what we're doing, but I think he kind of understands the fellowship thing a little bit, just from being there.
Mm.
And then Big Daddy, he was at he was at the kids workout, with the 2.0 workout we did not that long ago, and he's all for having a good time. So I think he sees that. But um yeah, I would really like to see Red Card come out a lot more, but man, his soccer schedule is so tough. But I keep thinking, like, for him to get into it at this age, even if he came out on Saturday mornings with us or something, if it could work,
Mm.
how good it could be for him. Like you look at Yoshi and those guys, like, could you imagine your life at 14 or 13 and grasping this and seeing it? Like it's crazy. But no, I haven't really, but it's something I need to do for sure.
We've talked about it at different points, I think, on this show, how amazing it would be. I've thought about what it's going to be like to have F3 in my 50s and 60s, but to have had F3 in my 20s would have been such an influence if I was ready for it at that time, if I was open to
Right.
accepting it, just to have the amount of positive male influence that was not family in my life instead of the
Mm.
knuckleheads I surrounded myself with in my 20s would have been completely a positive influence. So I hope we do get more younger men coming out. And I love seeing the father-son connection. Like you see it with Rooney and Bueller, you see it um, with Yoshi,
Flanders and Yoshi.
obviously Flanders and Yoshi. I I just recently um, Joel Osteen has come out with his
Yeah.
dad. And seeing that father-son connection, who else do we have? We had Plankton and SpongeBob. So,
Squidward.
SpongeBob.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry, SpongeBob.
yeah,
Yep, my
there
bad.
are a couple father
Similar.
duos that are just
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Trifecta was out today with Mousetrap for some Ultimate Football.
Yeah, yeah. It's just got to add. Like I was thinking of this as I was finishing up my run on Sunday, and Rooney and Bueller were about to go out on their run, and it was just the two of them. Like we had another group that went out before them, but I was just thinking like they're about to run 8 miles together, like side by side for however long it's going to take them. They're going to have that one-on-one time that most fathers and sons at that age don't have. And I was just
Yeah,
really happy for them to see that and hope that they get the most as possible out of that.
for
All
sure.
right. Really quick, if you have anything in mind, just curious what's next for you, what's on the horizon for Yellow Card. Now that you've dominated the Shamanwood region, what's your next quest in
Well,
F3?
we talked. We got a convergence coming up. I think. Well, I call it the transition team. Will probably be moving away. I've already said I'm going to move on from that. So I don't know yet. I go back and forth. I kind of think I would probably expect the same, probably 3, 4 days a week if I could get out. I'm definitely not going to shut up, so that's not going to happen. Um, I'd like to, I'd like to possibly just be around, maybe help psych Qs out, be there for anybody that needs a hand, whatever the region needs of me, I'll be here for in whatever capacity I could help out without, like I said, being able to be here every single day. And I think kind of when the expansion team met for the first time, Doghouse, you were there, we kind of all were sitting at Dunkin' Donuts and like, well, what are we going to do? The splits happened. Who's going to do what? What are you good at? And that's why I
Shit, now
call
what
it a
do we do?
transition team. I'm really looking forward to doing whatever I can to help the new SLT because I think what you're going to see now with this new SLT team is you're going to see this is like the first children of Shaman Wood and taking the torch on. So I've already talked to Ricola. Ricola and I talked a little bit on Friday, about a couple things, you know, uh, that he was thinking, a couple other packs that we've talked about things. So I don't know, probably just continue being mouth of the South and be an advocate for the region and be there for whoever needs me. So, or whatever help I can bring to anybody. I'll definitely still be around to razz Mr. Burns for another year while he's a psych Q at Three Rivers. I kind of feel like the godfather of that position. So, um, that's kind of what I see. We'll see whatever any day takes. We'll go from there, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the region grow. I think we're on the right track. Seeing from just adding Manuka into the Shaman Wood, I think is a big deal. The Wilmington boys, just seeing what they're doing. I mean, that was all chance, right? Doghouse, we're sitting there talking about how this is going to grow. And then like
Hmm.
Latte and Ricola just landed in our lap. And next thing you know, Wilmington's open. So, all these things happen for a reason. And, Morris, we talk about Morris happening. You got snail mail and toolbox. And I'd just like to be there for whoever needs help, whatever I could do to help stir up the region, stir the pot, whatever I got to do. That's kind of what I envision.
That sounds about right. Stirring the pot. I like it.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
Doghouse, I'll give it back to you for some third F info only kind of announcements, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, so not much change to last week, but by way of keeping up with it, we'll go through Iron Packs is upon us. We're doing Mondays at the Wood and Thursdays at the Island. There's a sign up link and a results link in the Slack channel and the info only channel if you want to check those out. We'll be holding our Shamanwood Fall conversions Saturday, September 27th at the Island. There's also a sign up in the first step, so make sure you check that out. Throw your HC on there. Let us know you'll be there. And finally, October 5th, Sunday, we have the Fire Zone 5K and the Adopt-A-Palooza event for dog adoptions at the Raven's Nest. Homer's running that. Those will both be great events. Homer's in charge of the Adopt-A-Palooza. So let's make sure we get out for that.
All right. Well, on my end, you can't see my notes screen, but the notes screen has gone completely blank on me. So I have no idea what happened there. But my COT, the only note I had was Halloween costumes. So I'm gonna go with that. I was talking to my wife and my daughter a little bit before this podcast started about what my 5 year old's Halloween costume is going to be, what she wants to dress up as, and she's going to be a butterfly, which is awesome. But it got me thinking as she was giving all of us ideas as to what mommy can be and what daddy can be, and how I really don't want to be a caterpillar. I really don't want to be a flower. I started thinking about how F3 gives us this opportunity. Each one of us gets a name, gets an identity that we get to wear and we get to put on every time we go into the gloom, and we get to be whoever we want to be. Yellow Card talked about how he's been in a leadership role for 8 years or so. And I know a lot of the men in F3 don't get that opportunity to lead at work. They don't get the opportunity to be seen as eye to eye with the men around them. They're either looked down upon or even sometimes in their own homes, just not respected in the way that they want to be. But F3 gives us this opportunity to step forward and be seen for the men that we can be. And whether that's the costume that we put on every day and show up in the gloom as Puddles, as Doghouse, as Yellow Card. Who we are when we show up is someone that the other men respect, and we have the opportunity to get on the cue sheet, to lead other men, and um, to accept that responsibility and pursue the potential that we all have inside of ourselves. So I'm grateful for F3 giving me the opportunity to lead and being free to lead, as the yellow card said earlier. But I'd encourage everyone to look at F3 through that lens, that this is an opportunity to be whoever you want to be, the person that brings out the best in other men and the best that other men can bring out in you. So I'll close with that. Um, Signing off, I am Bill Skoronsky. I'm 47 and I am Puddles.
Puddles.
Bottles.
John Christ, 41. Doghouse.
Doghouse.
Oof, oof. John Clicky, 43, yellow card.
Yellow card.
Yellow card.
All right, thanks for joining us, and we will see you in the gloom.
Thanks, gents.